So it's starting to look like Mike Waltz was fired as National Security Advisor over his hawkish stance on Iran. This is a very interesting article that really exposes a lot of details about Mike Waltz and everything surrounding his firing from the National Security Advisor position. Benjamin Netanyahu's office denies intensive contact with ousted National Security Advisor Mike Waltz on Iran nuke talks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denied a published report that ousted National Security Advisor Mike Waltz had intensive contact with him to push for the obliteration of Iran's nuclear sites rather than find a diplomatic solution. And this apparently infuriated Trump. And of course, this is something that Israeli Prime Minister is denying. Like, we didn't have any talks with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Of course we didn't. And this is something I have had questions about Mike Waltz from the start. I knew he was going to be hawkish on wars. And these individuals that are hawkish on wars, in my opinion, are untrustworthy. They're neocons and they're dangerous. They're not looking out for the best of the country, for American citizens. They're looking out for either a foreign country, a different country. They're looking out for the military industrial complex. That's big money. So I don't trust these people just intrinsically. And Mike Waltz, everything pointed to him being one of these types of individuals. So when he was fired, I was happy. Contrary to the Washington Post report, Prime Minister Netanyahu did not have intensive contact with Mike Waltz on Iran. The office said in a statement Saturday, hours after the outlet cited unnamed sources claiming the ex-Florida Pole was keen on U.S. pursuing military action against Tehran's nuke sites. And if you actually trust Netanyahu on this, just look at the facts here. I mean, do you think they would ever admit to going around, I guess, the administration and trying to directly talk to the National Security Advisor to pressure him into hopefully talking Trump into going to war with Iran or helping with Iran nuke strikes? No, there's not any scenario where Benjamin Netanyahu would actually admit to it. So do I believe that he is telling the truth here? I guess there's a possibility, but my odds would be on no, he is not. Quote, Prime Minister Netanyahu had a warm meeting with Mike Waltz and Steve Witkoff at Blair House in February prior to the Prime Minister's meeting with President Trump at the White House. Mike Waltz also joined Vice President J.D. Vance in a meeting with the Prime Minister before leaving Washington. Since then, the Prime Minister, the former National Security Advisor, and Steve Witkoff had one phone conversation that did not deal with Iran. The statement cuts against comments from a senior White House official, Trump advisor, and other unidentified sources who claim to Washington Post the former Green Beret wasn't just ousted for having added a journalist to a private cabinet-level signal chat discussing strikes on Houthi terrorists, but also because of his hawkish stance on Iran. So I'm assuming his firing was twofold. It was obviously embarrassing when that signal group chat came to light, and the media, Democrats, liberals, they wanted Hegseth gone, which was weird because it was Mike Waltz's fault. But eventually, Mike Waltz gets fired. And I knew it couldn't have been just over the signal group chat and these rumors that it's over his hawkish stance on war. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel like the Trump administration is actually fulfilling their promises, and they're willing to take these steps in order to make sure these bad actors aren't muddying up the waters and preventing him from fulfilling his promises. I know they say that Mike Waltz wasn't fired, and, I don't believe that for a second. There's something called, what is it called? Being promoted sideways. They're calling it a sideways promotion, but when you actually look at it with all the context surrounding this situation, Mike Waltz was fired, and everyone knows it. One of the sources said Waltz, quote, wanted to take U.S. policy in a direction Trump wasn't comfortable with because the U.S. hadn't attempted a diplomatic solution. So the Trump administration and most of the players in the Trump administration, or a lot of the players in the Trump administration. I guess I can't really say most because I don't know that for a fact. I do know there's a tug of war between these two sides, but there is some good actors in the Trump administration that says, hey, yes, we agree Iran should not be allowed to have a nuke. I think most of us can agree the less nukes in the world, the better. I can agree. I don't want Iran to have a nuke. But there are different opinions as to how to prevent Iran from obtaining this nuke. Now, of course, there's Israel, who says that they just want to bomb the living daylights out of Iran. And that, of course, would be pretty bad for Israel because Iran is a big country. You know, they have a lot of weapons, you know. And so in order to bomb Iran and do so safely, they have to have Big Daddy, the United States of America, back them up. And this is what is in contention right now. We have the anti-war faction that says, hey, why would we just go in there and help you with this attack against Iran? Yes, we agree. We don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons, but if we allow you to attack Iran and you want us to help, that's going to drag us into another war. And we all know once these wars start, they last like forever. I mean, remember the Iraq war that ended up being a total hoax? Maybe we should learn our lesson from a situation like that and make sure we explore every single possibility of a diplomatic solution before jumping the gun and attacking Iran, which is crazy. But of course, Israel, they want Iran attacked. They want the United States to go into this conflict with one of their enemies. Iran is not necessarily our enemy. I want to say that they're a friend whatsoever, but they are most definitely Israel's enemy. So Israel wants their enemy to be attacked, and they want us to help them with that. And they're using this nuclear situation as a justification. But, you know, there is more than one way to skin a cat, and I'm glad the Trump administration is exploring the diplomatic way to skin the cat. Quote, it got back to Trump and the president wasn't happy with it, the source said. On Tuesday, the then national security advisor told the Post that the president had been clear about pursuing, quote, all options, military or otherwise, to halt Tehran's regime from getting a nuclear bomb. Quote, Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb, and the president has been there repeatedly, and he is absolutely serious about it. But Trump also told the Time magazine last week, the United States will not be dragged into a war with Iran, as his officials, including Special Presidential Envoy for the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, discuss ways to prevent the theocratic regime from enriching enough uranium to make the weapon. Quote, he may go into a war, but we're not getting dragged in, Trump said of Netanyahu. I may go in very willingly if we can't get a deal. If we don't make a deal, I'll be leading the pack. Basically saying, listen, if we can't strike a deal with Iran and get them to stop trying to produce this nuclear weapon, if they're just shut off from any sort of diplomatic solution, then I'll be leading the pack. But until that actually happens, we're not getting dragged into this war with Iran. I don't care what Israel says. The president also batted down early reports that he, quote, stopped Netanyahu from launching strikes on Iran's uranium enrichment sites. Quote, I didn't make it comfortable for them because I think we can make a deal without the attack. He noted, I hope we can. It's possible we'll have to attack because Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. I didn't make it comfortable for them, but I didn't say no. Ultimately, I was going to leave that choice to them, but I said I would much prefer a deal than bombs being dropped. In February, the UN's nuclear watchdog warned that Tehran's uranium enrichment was nearing weapon-grade level. In April, Netanyahu said if it weren't for his past actions, quote, Iran would have had a nuclear weapon 10 years ago. Marco Rubio, who succeeded Waltz as acting national security advisor, for the time being at least, on Thursday, becoming the first cabinet official to hold both titles since Henry Kissinger, who served in the capacity from 1973 to 75 under Nixon. Trump appointed Waltz as his nominee for U.S. ambassador to the UN the same day. And that's the whole sideways promotion that they talk about. Oh, he wasn't fired. He was promoted, trying to really save face for Mike Waltz and pretend like, oh, there's nothing really going on here when there really is. Quote, from his time in uniform on the battlefield in Congress and as my national security advisor, Mike Waltz has worked hard to put our nation's interests first. So that's the quote about Mike Waltz. And then they congratulate him on his appointment to the UN ambassador position. So this is an indication to me that Trump is really trying to follow through with his promises and that he is doing everything he can to pursue diplomacy and not drag the United States into these forever wars. I think this is of utmost importance because one of the reasons why he was elected in the first place was because of the war in Ukraine. Why are we sending billions of dollars over to this war in Ukraine? What's going on with this? This should be ended like yesterday. No one really knows why we're there. They won't really give us a good explanation as to why we're there. There's a lot of different schools of thought, but really what it comes down to is this very vague, shallow reasoning about, oh, we're over there defending Ukraine from this evil dictator, Vladimir Putin. It's just like, does anybody actually believe that narrative? And if you're going to lie about that narrative, why should I trust you in general? Why should I just trust you and just throw my support behind this war between Russia and the Ukraine when somehow it has this vague reasoning over democracy? Like, are we that dumb that we believe that? So that's why Trump was elected, to get us out of these wars so that our country is not just hemorrhaging money to foreign countries for no good reason, or at least no good reason that we know about because they won't tell us. And him firing Mike Waltz, I think, is a great indication that he's actually trying to follow through with his promises. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think of Mike Waltz being fired? And do you believe it's because of his hawkish stance on the Iran nuclear situation? I believe that there's a good chance that this is actually the truth. And if it is the truth, it makes me love President Trump even more. But let me know down below in the comments what you think. Like and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.